Hello viewers, welcome back to Daily Retro. This is episode 9 of Guide to Games Rooms, and today we have our first American guest. So this is Samantha Azira. Those of you who follow her channel may know that she's recently moved into a brand new games room in Florida. So say hello, Samantha.
Hey guys, all the way from Florida.
Good to have you on. It's a 5-hour time difference, so it wasn't the most ideal thing to organise, but Samantha was very willing. So we'll jump right into the questions. These are the same 9 questions for everyone we have on the show. She's been kind enough to sort of do a little bit of prep of the questions, which is more than a lot of people do, but we'll see how it goes. So question number 1 is, when did your games room first appear? So you sent me a few different renditions of your games rooms across the years.
Yeah.
So when did the first one appear?
I mean, if we're going into, because a game room to me is when you start choosing to display and start collecting. And honestly, I don't know if you remember, I don't know how it worked over there, but Burger King was the place in the 90s to go get Pokemon toys. Right? And I remember, I think I was probably a 3rd, 4th grader. I don't remember. I started displaying all of my toys and all of the packagings from the Burger King meals alongside my Super Nintendo. And growing up, I was lucky enough to have a TV in my room. So I had a very loose display, but I would say my first tried and true was when we got our first house and we had a spare bedroom. One of the renditions I showed you is just simple Walmart bookcases with a bookcase in the middle and a computer with a big TV as my primary flat screen. So I guess it was always slowly evolving, but the true first one was when I got my first house, and that was probably 2016.
Okay, cool. So
yeah,
that's 6 years, and this will be the 3rd games room?
Yeah, and this one is very close to what the final product was at my old home, but with some twists, because this closet is a lot bigger than my other one. So my first game room closet, I had it, all my games could fit wall to wall, and on this one it's so long that they don't anymore, and so I'm having to figure out what to do. The answer is buy more games, but for now I have to find a way to get my games to stop tilting over.
Yeah, you gotta leave some space for when new stuff actually comes out that you want.
Yeah.
Cool. So we'll move on to question number 2, which kind of follows on from that. So how long did your current room take to build? You mentioned it's not quite finished yet.
No, yeah. So we moved in March 3rd, I believe, and the game room was one of the first rooms I went for because the amount of totes that were transferred over to here, I would say, I'm trying not to exaggerate, but a little less than half of our moving van was my game room. So getting the game room up was important because we could get all that stuff out of the way. And so from March 3rd to now, this has been my primary focus, with leaving a lot of other things ignored in this house so that I could put stuff away. So the closet was the first thing, getting my shelving back up. This is that bracket shelving so that I can determine the length of the games. Like I said, this one has a lot more room, and I deliberately designed these closets so that the shelves are deeper, so that I can hide things behind them and store some of the things that I don't want to quite display, but I don't want to quite get rid of. Yeah. So this time around, it was March 3rd to now. The last one, that one was probably a slow transition from, I had a game room, then I unexpectedly had roommates, and then I had to rebuild the game room. But if that wouldn't have happened, I wouldn't have gotten a second chance to start from scratch and start really discovering what I wanted to do, which is where the closet idea came from. So that was really fun. That was over a couple years.
Nice. Yeah, it's a good way of doing things.
Yeah.
Cool. So question number 3 is, where did the inspiration for your games room come from? We mentioned just before we started recording that you watched Discart, which I mentioned on previous episodes. Did it come from other YouTubers or just friends in person? Or?
So I feel like my inspiration has primarily been from game stores that I've been going to growing up because I had a game room, or at least I had the ideas of a game room before I was really into the YouTube community. Now I've been like a YouTube viewer since like probably the inception of it, but I don't recall really seeing a lot of the retro community until later on. I don't know why I didn't just start looking for that community. So in my areas, back in the day when there were like movie rental stores, some of them had like Game Crazy attached to them. And then later on, those Game Crazies kind of split off and started becoming their own shops. And when you walk in, majority of the Game Crazy owners are also collectors. So along the walls, you'll see plushes and boxes of like really rare stuff that you don't ever see, and it's never for sale. And I loved how they displayed like that's kind of where this closet came from. I like the display of the wall. Like in my YouTube intro, I'm panning across inside of the Game Crazy as part of my intro. It's just because I like that being able to look at a wall and see all of it there. And so like game stores and just having all of these cool things all over the wall and being able to just spend, 20 minutes in one spot and seeing something new was kind of my primary inspiration. Now, this particular game room, I tried my best not to shove my walls with so much stuff like I did my last one. It's halfway working out, but that's kind of my primary. It did evolve though once I started finding people like Discart and Pixel Game Squad, like Riff, his shed, whatever he uses. I think it's like a shed, and just kind of putting all that nostalgia all over the place. I think that definitely fueled it for sure later on.
Yeah, that's cool that you took your inspiration from shops. I don't think anyone's mentioned that before. But yeah, I'm kind of the same. I remember the days of Blockbuster.
Yeah.
And yeah, that was it's a nice thing to look back on and be able to sort of replicate in your own space.
Yeah, if I had more room, I would totally have like a VHS wall, like where you can grab rentals and stuff. But I just don't have the room.
Yeah, take up a lot of space. Cool. So, question number 4 is: what is your favorite item or feature of your current games room?
So, I mean, my favorite feature is probably my closet, just because I have no idea where the inspiration came from. I was just sitting randomly, and then I just had the thought, like, what if I put shelving in my closet instead of trying to fit things in there in awkward ways? And so when I came up with the concept at first, it was a lot of trial and error on what was going to work. And I ended up getting too few shelves and having to go back and buy more and get it fitted. And then when we moved, I had to leave that closet behind because we didn't have enough space, and I had to start from scratch here, and it was all over again, just trying to figure out what was going to fit. And so that was like one of my features that I really liked. I also like that I have 2 TVs. I have a short attention span, so I like having something playing on like the flat screen while I'm playing like an old game, or if I'm playing a newer game, then I'll play like VHS on my old TV. And so that's another thing that I really enjoy about my game room. The fact that I can even fit a couch in here, not everybody's so fortunate. That's been nice too.
Yeah, that's something I was going to mention actually. Obviously you sent me some pictures of the current room, and I thought it was really cool that you got a CRT below the modern TV. Do you have all your consoles? Do you have all your sort of native CRT consoles hooked up to the CRT and then the modern ones to the modern, or is it a mixture?
Yeah, no, all of my old are connected to the CRT, and I have 2 Switch boxes where they're all connected, which I found at like pawn stores, or like a Pelican brand, if you remember who they are. And then on the flat screen, I have yet to do it, but I have 2 HDMI splitters that I'm going to hook up to it. But there's a cord, we can get into it later because I think it's one of the questions of things I have left to do. But there is something I'm going to be doing for cord management because, like many other people, I don't want to see them.
Yeah,
so
it's the bane of everyone's life who has a games room.
Yeah, cord management, I mean, it can take hours, literally hours.
Yeah. All right, so I think I can guess the answer to this next question, but what's the most expensive item in your games room? So I would hazard a guess that it's one of your fantastic N64s, but
Really?
I could be wrong.
So I used to be really heavy into checking prices before everything escalated to the point where it's at now. Now I just don't feel like there's any point in bothering. Because game hunting now is nothing like it used to be. I used to keep up a lot, but if I had to take a guess, it would be between my boxed Pikachu Nintendo 64 or my boxed TurboGrafx 16. And I also have a boxed Turbo Booster, so if you consider those a package deal, then that would be one of them as well. I have a boxed PC FX, but it doesn't have a controller with it, and I have no idea if it works. I also have a box for Virtual Boy, so I don't know the market. One of those four has to be it, though. Gotcha Force for GameCube, too.
Oh, cool. Did you
Did
you grow up with the PC Engine then?
No, not at all.
Oh, right. Okay.
We were like a Nintendo household through and through. Everything else I discovered later on in life.
Oh, awesome.
I had no idea the Virtual Boy existed so much later in life. What a disaster that is, but I'm glad I have one.
Yeah, that's something I've never owned either, but yeah, the first time I saw one was when I was an adult at a convention, so...
Yeah, the TurboGrafx 16 was gifted to me, and it has an EverDrive with it, so I don't actually own any TurboGrafx 16 games. But it works, and I can play on an EverDrive. Which, yeah. I'm not the biggest fan of EverDrive, it's just TurboGrafx 16 is just not physically possible.
Yeah, it can get very expensive, so sometimes you just got to go that
Yeah.
route. If it's not something that's nostalgic, it doesn't quite feel as bad that you're doing that.
Right. Yeah, no, it's just not worth it for me.
Cool. So, next question is, what do you play most in your games room? So you mentioned that Nintendo is sort of your go-to. Which is your main go-to Nintendo console?
It's honestly a mix between three consoles. The Super Nintendo is the console I first started out with. Well, that's a lie. I actually started with the Nintendo Entertainment System, but I was at an age where you could barely argue that I actually knew what I was doing. I was very, very little. And then the Super Nintendo is when things really started to develop, with playing Donkey Kong Country and Super Mario World and fighting with my sisters over trying to sit in front of this tube TV to play this console. The Super Nintendo, I'm probably the most nostalgic for. So there are particular games that I'll play like once to twice a year just because I have to. But I don't know if it's my most played because I do bounce around a bit, like between my Nintendo 64. If I have friends over, then we'll play Mario Kart or 007. So that happened recently. And the GameCube possibly might be my most played recently, but that's kind of a cheat because I have the Game Boy Advance player with it. So I'm using it for two different reasons off and on, whereas recently I've been playing a lot of my Game Boy Advance games on my Game Boy player ad nauseum. So I've been playing that a lot because I love playing with the Wavebird. In my current room, my couch is a little further from my TV, so the cord length is a new issue I have to kind of work with here. And so I've been playing a lot of GameCube games, a lot of Game Boy Advance games. It's probably very, very obvious that I have an addiction to Pokemon. So I play a lot of Pokemon Red, Ruby, Red, just like the regular one, Fire Red, over and over again when I really should be playing something else in my backlog.
That's totally understandable. I absolutely love my GameCube and Wavebird as well with the Game Boy player.
Yeah, it's a shame that the Wavebird is so expensive now.
Yeah, I don't know how much they are over in America, but over here they're about £60 per controller at the moment, which is about $80.
Yeah, I would say they're somewhere in that neighborhood here, probably more. I don't know. I really should start paying attention to the market again.
Yeah, you only really notice when you actually want another sort of thing.
Right. I'll say because Sega Genesis is what I've been trying to collect for, and that, in my mind, I was still back in 4 years ago or so, where I was going to be paying $20 for a game, and that is not the case anymore.
Yeah, and just going back to the N64 side of things, I would highly recommend. Have you heard of Retro Fighters? they basically make wireless N64
Oh,
controllers,
yes.
but they make them in the same colors, the exact same colors as the Fantastic N64s.
I've seen those. Yeah.
the ice colored N64, and I've got the Retro Fighters ice wireless controller, and yeah, it looks awesome together. But that would solve the cable issue.
Yeah, I've actually been keeping my eye on getting one of those controllers for a few years, and I just kind of keep forgetting about it. Because I mean, the ultimate. I would love to find a Hori controller, but those are like, I don't know, $200+ probably. And so the Retro Fighters was going to be my replacement for that, because I had a friend who said, "Well, I don't want to play the Nintendo 64 because of the controller." But that's a whole other argument. I love the Nintendo 64 controller, but you know. That was going to be my answer for it, and I just never went for it.
That's fair enough.
Yeah.
We'll get one eventually.
Probably.
Cool. So, question number 7. Have you had any challenges or problems when you built your current games room, or was there still any unsolved issues?
Yeah, there's a couple. So, like the closet, if you build something like this, you have to go a little bit shorter than you think you should with the shelves, because when you're putting them in, they get caught on the wall, and then you're having to put it in perfectly, where if you give yourself a little bit of give, you're not going to be fighting with the wall so much and damaging it. That happened a handful of times. I don't think I ever put it in a video, but there's video of me fighting with it, trying to get it out of, getting it out of the wall. And so some of the wall on the sides have taken damage, but I don't know if you can see it just because of how deep they are. And then in terms of cord management, a long time ago, you know that piping you can buy at hardware stores? It's like the white,
yep.
And it's got a little tip on it. Those kind of reminded me of Mario pipes. So a long time ago, I grabbed a curved one and spray painted it green to hold Wiimotes on the wall, but I could never figure out how to mount it. But then I had the idea of buying those pipes and spray painting them that Mario pipe green, and running them from my flat screen down to my CRT, and then shoving all of the cords in that. That way it looked like I had Mario's pipe running down my wall. I'm not sure how well it's going to work, but that's my solution so far for the cords that hang from the flat screen. Because I don't know if I sent you a picture of it, the one that shows it, but the back paneling on the shelf below the CRT is a fake brick wall. And so I thought that the fake brick wall with the green piping would be kind of like the really, really old, Atari Mario game, that kind of that aesthetic.
Yeah, no, that would look really, really cool.
And then I got a couple of blank walls that I haven't figured out what to do with. I think there is an IKEA shelf that will fit in between my N64 shelf and the closet, but those are things I kind of have to measure out and go figure it out eventually.
Yeah, cool. So there's a few things to do, but it's mainly sort of things that make the aesthetic look better rather than the functionality.
Yeah, no, right now it's fully functional, other than I have no HDMI consoles hooked up to the flat screen, which will resolve with that piping, because I want to be able to hide all the cords and not have them all hanging from the TV. Because Discart called me out on that. I have sent my game room into him, I think twice, at least. On one of his very, very earlier episodes, you can actually catch one of the earliest versions of my game room in one of his first showings of those. And then when I redid it, I sent it to him again, and he did it again. And he praised the room, other than he called me out on my cords. And so ever since then, I'm like, I'm going to have to hide them.
That's really cool. My games room has been on Discard as well. Literally one month after I moved into my house last year. So I definitely need to resend it in, because it's changed a lot since then.
Yeah. Well, he will re-show it if he likes it. Because I've done it twice.
Yeah. Oh, awesome.
So he's a cool guy.
Yeah. Okay, so penultimate question for yourself before I get on to my favourite bit of your room, which is, are there any upcoming changes to your room? It might kind of lead on from the previous question.
Right.
But yeah, is there anything else?
Well, I've got blank spaces on the wall. Like I said, I'm not trying to overwhelm the room, but I've got some things that need to come out and go somewhere. And so the problem with my game room is a lot of the times I'll sit on my couch and kind of look around, and then something will strike me, and then all of a sudden I want to change something. And so, I mean, there are probably changes, I just don't know what they are yet.
No, I totally agree with that. My wife gets very frustrated when I have evenings
Yeah.
where I just sit down and think, yeah, I'll tear this to bits and put it back together again.
Yeah. Or if I feel like I want to clean something, I mean, removing everything from the shelves is such a pain. Most recently, I actually bought that canned air, and sometimes I'll just kind of walk by and do that. And that seems to be a good in between from tearing everything off your shelves if you kind of just want a quick little dusting.
Yeah.
But if you have figures, it can blow them over, so just be careful.
Yeah, make sure they're secure. Cool. So, final question for yourself. It's probably quite relevant to yourself, obviously, because you just rebuilt a games room. Are there any tips you would give to people who are thinking of building their first games room?
So for me, it depends on kind of where you're at. If you're starting out, my very, very first gaming room, I used what I had, and I went to thrift stores to kind of keep a budget-friendly room. I'm a firm believer in not any judgment, but I truly believe if you're going to play old games, you should play them on a CRT. Like, that's my own personal preference. Now, CRTs can be free, but a lot of people these days have kind of caught on to the fact that gamers are looking for them, so they're kind of trying to charge, $60, $120. So be diligent in looking at your local used market, thrift stores, if you're going to try to find a CRT. A remote is not a deal breaker. Universal remotes work all the time. I have one that's currently connected to both TVs, and I have the original remote, but it's, don't worry about the remote. Just make sure that it's in a good condition. I know everybody wants a Sony Triton, but just get what you can get at first. My first game room that I had a really big CRT, bigger than this one. I ended up finding a rolling cart for it, and I would advise if you have nowhere to put it, get a rolling cart, because it's going to be easier to move it around and kind of store it in the corner or something. Try your best not to go overboard all at once, because everyone's got their own style. So if I was first starting out, I would probably, if we're on a budget, I would probably go to IKEA or Walmart and maybe get a couple of bookshelves, see how much you can fill it in and kind of go from there. Because if you can fill those up, then you pretty much set yourself up, set your TV up, and you can start gaming. But thrift stores, Facebook Marketplace, all of that is your friend with that kind of stuff, because furnishing a game room often is second to everything else you've got going on in life. Like the couch I got in here, I got it for $50 from some lady down the street. The storage ottoman I have, some college student, across town. You can find nice stuff out there, and you don't have to spend a lot of money on it, because you should be pinching pennies to get the games, not the furniture. As much as I love display, it's one of my all-time favorite aspects of retro gaming, other than the actual gaming itself. But when you're first starting out, try your best to observe other people's game rooms before you start just spending all this money. Kind of get an idea of what you want to do. I use a shot glass case to display my Game Boy games. That's meant to be for shot glass. I mean, this cart is like the king of using things for what they're not intended for. I personally love acrylic displays. I have magazine holders that I put my Pokemon comic books in, things like that. So if you're first starting out, don't try to spend too much on the furniture. Get an idea for what kind of taste you have, what you're looking for, display what's important to you. And it's okay if you can't display all of it. I ran into that a lot, where I was just trying to just pack it all in. And I currently probably have, 3 or 4 totes of game stuff in the other guest room. I don't know what I'm going to do with them. I don't know how I'm going to display them, but don't rush it either. give yourself the time to really think about it. I'm not a planner. I'm not the person that, plans things out. I did have to measure a couple times just to make sure what I wanted was going to fit. But most of my choices in this room have been standing in it, looking around and saying, I think this will work, and this will probably go here. And, just kind of go with your own flow. If you're a planner, that's great. Plan it out. That's perfectly fine. And if you're not, that's okay too. You don't have to fit into other people's mold. It's your game room,
Yeah, that's cool. Quite a relevant question then. Did you actually see your current or new games room before you moved from Oregon?
Yeah, I moved ahead of my husband. I got the job pretty fast, so I was staying in a temporary like Airbnb home. I was the one that actually picked the house out. The downfall of this house is my game room was supposed to be bigger than what it is. And I'm very, very happy that I even have a game room, don't get me wrong. But the goal is moving across that I was going to find a home with a bigger space. However, the market is so like just insane that, not trying to get this house would have been irresponsible. As just checking the market today, I think the house is already worth like $25,000 over what I paid for it.
Yeah.
So, it was going to be irresponsible if I didn't, but I did see it and I saw the layout and I already had it pre-picked out before we even moved in. There is a bonus room that was possibly a contender, and it has really, really like high walls, which would have been great, but not very many people build shelves that tall, and I wouldn't have been able to fit my couch. So it defaulted to this room.
Yeah, that's some really cool ideas. Thanks for that. I would definitely agree with trying to build your room on sort of a budget first, get it functional. Yeah. It's going to be a lot more functional on the retro gaming side of things if you've got a CRT. Even I, who absolutely love my tech, would say it's absolutely the best way to get gaming quickly on retro if you've got a good CRT. Not going to cost you the earth, whereas these HDMI adapters for your old consoles, they do add up. So yeah, that's really cool. Okay, so thank you for answering all those questions, Samantha. I'm just going to talk quickly about my favourite bit of the interviewee's room. So I got sent a load of pictures before this call, and we've kind of already touched on it. So I saw the CRT below the modern TV, and that's something I've not actually seen before by anyone really that's come on this show anyway. There's kind of always like an offset, so there's usually a modern TV on the right, say, and the CRT on the left, and that always bugs me, because I'm like, what if you're sat in your normal, everyone has their normal place on the sofa, so so yeah, you're kind of setting yourself up perfectly, because you can sit in the same place and play whatever you want. So I thought that was a really cool aesthetic.
Yeah, and one of my really early, when I moved back into my game room, I had my CRT on a couple milk crates, and then I had the flat screen on its legs on top of it. So I've been doing that for years, but before that I had the rolly cart with the side by side. But like I said, if I want to watch something like YouTube and play Super Mario World, I don't want them side by side. I want them one on top of the other, and it saves room for more shelving for display anyway.
Yeah, that's right. You got a really nice display on the left and right hand side, and below those screens. So yeah, it's a nice way of doing things.
Yeah, one of those boxes is missing something, and I didn't know what to do with it. I think I specifically sent you 2 pictures, or I think 2 or 3, where I titled it "Needs Work" or something like that. And I today decided that empty cube is going to be like my classic PS1 mini box with my PS Vita, PSP, like a PS2 iToy, like, kind of PlayStation. I think that's what I've decided. That's what that's going to be, which is above the cluster of Xbox 360s.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. thanks for answering all those questions, Samantha. I really appreciate you taking the time to do that.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
If you've enjoyed this episode, guys, don't forget to leave a comment and a like down below, and don't forget to subscribe. And we'll see you very soon for another episode of Guides Game Soon. Cheers.